Number 1. I'll start off by saying I grew up in a small town in England. Just like anywhere else, everywhere has their fair share of rough areas. In this particular town, the majority are seen as rough. I used to hang around with what I now know as the wrong crowd. These thugs didn't go out to have a good time, they went out to commit crimes. Theft, assault, general arseholery, and everyone in the borough knew their names and their reputation. But me and a friend, being the idiots we were, chose to specifically hang around with them. Life lessons, right? Anyway, all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, they had turned on us. They'd invite us out and make it seem like they wanted us there, but in fact it was only to bully and belittle us, and this just got progressively worse. Me and my best mate used to frequent the under-18s nights at the nightclubs around town, and these thugs used to pull outside in your closing time to wait for us to come out. At first it was mainly just bickering and shouting across the street, but this quickly progressed. Soon it was pushing, scraping and attempting to jump us, basically 10 or more lads attacking one person, but to no avail, until one day they managed to get to my best mate and promptly beat the shit out of him right outside the club. I feel so guilty for legging it out of there as soon as it kicked off now, but he never had any hard feelings and managed to get away somehow with only a few bumps and cuts. The next encounter is significant. We'd been in an under-18s night at a nightclub up the road from the last attack, having a great time, thinking they wouldn't know because we'd switched venues. But they knew. And because of their notoriety, news spread around the club fast, and we quickly found out there were 30 to 40 lads outside, waiting for us. Fuck this shit, I'm not leaving the club. We notified the bouncers and thankfully they let us stay there until my dad was able to come and pick us up from the front door, who I phoned. Me and my mate get in the car, and the only way out is to drive past them. They're banging on the window and most of them are putting their fingers across their throats, which we all know what that signifies. But being our daft selves, we decide to shrug it off as idle threats. That was until a week later, while we were in high school. It was all over the local news. A shop owner on a precinct near to where we both live had been brutally attacked and killed by a group of 20 or so kids, battered with metal pipes, pool cues, whatever was long and solid, along with multiple stamps and whatnot. That was when we realised the threat was very real. They tried their usual tactic of inviting us out during this period of time between leaving the club and the murder, but we refused for obvious reasons. About 12 lads were arrested on murder suspicions. 4 were locked up for murder, some for accessory, some for stuff less serious. Close call. Not sure if the main culprits are out of prison yet, but a life sentence in England usually means 25 years, only serving 2/3 and maybe less for good behaviour, and this was about 12 years ago, so who knows. I hope to God they've forgotten, which I'm confident they have, but God help me if we accidentally cross paths. Number 2. This happened to me a few years ago, about midway through second year of university. I had lived in residence first year, but like most people who aren't filthy rich, I got a townhouse off campus with a few roommates. It was my first time living on my own, and for a small town girl I was relatively confident and independent when it came to walking around by myself at night, especially considering we lived in one of the more dangerous areas of the city, unbeknownst to us upon signing the lease. Extremely low income, gang territory, muggings, etc. Just after moving out at the end of the year, I heard about a girl who was gang raped, and they used a hot curling iron. Probably would have been more careful had I heard that before this incident, but at the time, just fresh out of the protective cocoon of residence, my mentality was, this is Ottawa, and I was formerly the rugby captain of the best girls team in Ontario, and that past summer I had backpacked through Europe by myself for 5 weeks, So basically I thought I was invincible tough shit. I was the last one up one night, frantically finishing a research paper due the next day. I looked at the time, noticed the convenience store across the street was about to close for the night, and I needed to grab some smokes or I was not going to get through the night. I throw on my coat and such and head out. As I'm walking across the soccer field-sized parking lot, the convenience store was attached to a mall, I noticed a few men approaching me, and then a few more. There were probably about 7 of them. They continued walking toward me, and I picked up the pace, anxious to get into the store. They start calling after me, getting closer, trying to circle me. I finally reached the store after what seemed like the longest walk of my life, but I reached the door and it didn't open. I forgot that you needed to wait for the cashier to buzz you in after 10 PM in my slightly panicked state. I yanked the door a few times, indicating to the man inside that I want to be let in, and he just stares at me and shakes his head. The men are right behind me now, and the car that I passed in the parking lot and presumed was just parked overnight started up and joins them, right in front of the store and right behind me, with a couple more of them in it. I'm terrified at this point, banging on the door and gesturing to the man inside that I'm in danger and needed help. He continues to shake his head. Giving up, I considered my options. They had me backed up to the wall, pretty much blocking me in and forming a semicircle around me. They continue with the leering, jeering and threatening and rude comments. Then I just ran. I was terrified, I could see no other option. They chased me and so did the men in the car. I managed to outrun them. My mad dash was pretty sudden and out of nowhere, but I knew I couldn't go home yet. My house was right across the street. They would be able to clearly see where I was going even if they hadn't chased me. With the car still following me, men yelling from the windows, I ran around the block through people's backyards to lose the car, hoping the darkness would help me lose the men on foot, and hopped the back fence to my row of townhouses. I got home safely and all was well. However, it was definitely one of the most scary experiences I've ever had, and I'm still not sure why the cashier didn't let me in. I assumed it was because he was afraid of potentially dangerous criminals in the store, but that's what the buzzer system's for anyway. But seriously man, I see you pretty much once a day for 3 months since I moved in, and you still have that little compassion for my well-being? I could never do that to anyone, a stranger or even someone I hated. I don't exactly know what their intentions were, but the way they circled me, like a pack of wolves or hyenas or something on a hunt, was absolutely terrifying. That's exactly how I felt, like a trapped, hunted animal. How could you just sit idly by while watching all this through the window? An overdramatic friend of mine suggested that the convenience store clerk was in on it, and scouted me out for them. I don't believe that, but either way I stopped going to that convenience store completely after the incident. Number 3. About 2 years ago, my friends and I had found out about an abandoned insane asylum located in Downey, California. Being the curious 17-year-olds we were, we decided it'd be a good idea to go explore the abandoned facility just to see what we could find inside. So, on a Saturday night, we gathered a few more of our friends and made the drive down to Downey so we could explore this building for ourselves. After about 30 minutes of driving, we arrive in Downey and make our way through the city to where the insane asylum is located. The closer we get, the shadier and shadier the neighbourhoods we're passing through become, and after about another 15 minutes of driving, we arrive at our destination. We park the car, climb through a hole in the fence and make our way into the building to see what we could find. To be honest, it started out not being too bad. Considering we had about 10 people, we were thinking, what's the worst that could happen to a group of 10 people? So we meandered through the building, looking at all the broken furniture scattered throughout the rooms and the patient files thrown upon the floor. We're pretty much just having a good time looking at what once was this weird mental institution. But this is where shit gets weird. As we're walking, we of course have a flashlight pointed down the hallway because the power that was once in this building is clearly out. But as we're walking with our flashlight pointed ahead of us, we come to a corner. We see this adjacent wall of the corner light up from what we assumed was another flashlight, and sure enough we turn the corner and there's another group of 4 kids. Shady, weird fucking kids. We confront each other, and they ask us if we'd been to the slide. We politely answer no because we have no idea what they're talking about, and they tell us that we should follow them. Of course we decline because we're getting weird vibes from these people, and as they're talking amongst themselves, one of the kids comes up to me with, I kid you not, a solid 6-inch Bowie knife looking thing.
"Isn't this cool? Look what I found."
As he moves the knife closer to my face, I politely answer, what a cool find that is, and we start to back away, telling them that we're going to go explore the roof of the building. Surprisingly, they say alright, and they turn the corner and continue on their way. Alright, now that was out of the way, I'm seriously beginning to feel weird about being in this place, and about how we're definitely not supposed to be here. So at this point I say fuck it, we need to get to the roof, go down the fire escape and get the hell out of here. So we make our way to the roof, and we're sitting there plotting our escape. Like I said, people are not supposed to be in the asylum, so they have a police car stationed at the main gate to make sure no one comes in. So as we're up there, we try to figure out the best path to get out of here without getting noticed by the police. That's when my friend sees a fire escape ladder coming down off the higher portion of the roof. We decide that's probably our best bet, so we grab a small ladder that will be able to boost us up onto the higher portion of the roof. My friend Jonah goes up and immediately turns around so we can help the other people out by pulling them up. As I'm getting myself up there, my heart completely fucking sinks. "Jonah, did you not see this when you got up here?" I whisper. "What the fuck are you talking about, man?" He responds. I'm looking forward, and he slowly turns to see what was pretty much our worst fucking nightmare. There's about 15 hooded people sitting in a circle, up there surrounding a burning cat or some dead animal. These motherfuckers are talking in tongues and just making noises which seemed satanic. As we're both getting down, we noticed that they started talking amongst themselves in this weird language, and as soon as we get down, these motherfuckers stand up and start sprinting towards us. I tell everyone to ditch the idea of the fire escape and not to worry about the cop. We need to get the fuck out of here. So we start sprinting through this building with this cult in close pursuit behind us. We miraculously make it out of the building and are starting to run across the field to the main gate, and as we're doing so, the cop notices all the commotion, turns on his sirens and comes driving in. Thank God he manages to cut the call off from us, and he starts to chase them away as we get away safely. Honestly, I can safely say it was the scariest experience of my life. What would we have done if they'd have taken one of our friends? Would we have to go back to confront them? I don't know, and I'm glad that it didn't happen. Number 4. The year was 1989. I was 7, and my mother had just served divorce papers to my father earlier in the month. Their relationship was an insane and mutually abusive experience, and tensions were high all around. During one particularly heated incident, I grabbed my mother's keys and purse and hurriedly ushered my younger brother outside to wait in the car for our inevitable escape. We watched the sunset as we waited. Moments later, my mother rushed to the car and jumped into the driver's seat. My father was 2 steps behind her, yelling and cursing as he reached the car window. She revved up the engine and squealed away from him in a haze of burnt rubber. Our trip was not a long one that night. We drove to a nearby lake on the edge of town. We had been there many times before, as it was close to our house, and my mother found the cool rushing of the waves to be a comfort. It was her favourite place of respite. We parked on the far edge of the lake, and she turned the car off and rolled down all the windows. We sat in silence as the Oklahoma wind dripped across the lake, finding solace in the rhythmic crashing of the water. She cried, and my brother and I eyed each other helplessly. Suddenly, a woman cried out in the darkness. Every hair on my arms raised in answer, and my mother's head raised sharply. She looked to the back seat where my brother and I were, and assured us that it was just teenagers fooling around. She said that she was going to have a look just to be sure. My brother and I begged her not to go, but she is an incredibly stubborn woman and told us to roll up the windows, lock the doors, and not let anyone but her inside. My brother and I watched in horror as she passed the front of the headlights and walked to a grove of trees to our right. We pressed our faces against the glass, trying to see through the shadows. Suddenly, she came tearing back through the trees. I moved quickly to unlock the door and she jumped in, breathless. She started the car with shaking hands and sped away, heading to the nearest exit from the lake area. She refused to tell us what she had seen, but said that we were going home and we were to immediately get in our pajamas and brush our teeth. 15 minutes after we arrived home, my brother and I were discussing the event in whispers in our shared bedroom. There was a knock at the door, and I peeked around the corner in the hallway to see that 2 law enforcement officers had arrived. I rushed back to my room to tell my brother just as my mum came to our door, told us to stay in our room, and closed the door behind her. I was a sneaky and precautious child, and made my brother swear to be silent as I carefully pried the door open to listen. I tiptoed into the hallway and heard my mother recount to the officers the crazy scene she had witnessed. On the other side of the trees, she had seen a group of individuals in dark robes and a small fire that were speaking in some strange language. She saw a young woman dressed in street clothes who was being restrained by 2 of the hooded figures. They asked for more details, but she told them how she had been afraid for herself and for her children, and knew that she had to get to a phone and call the police. The officers left shortly after, and I crept quietly back to my bedroom. My mother came to tuck us in, and my brother and I ended up staying awake that night after I divulged the details to him. I don't know what the officers found down at that lake, or what became of the investigation. My mother refuses to speak of that night to this day. What I do know is that in the 80s there was a large satanic presence in Oklahoma, and a lot of creepy stuff happening. Also, this lake was at the south end of what is known locally as 5 Mile Road, which is rumoured to have been where many odd rituals took place and where a lot of weird things have happened. They've found mutilated animal remains and even bodies at the nature reserve that is on the edge of the lake. That whole place has bad juju, even now, and is one of the eeriest places, even in daylight. Well guys, thanks for watching, and if you're wondering where the fuck I've been all week, well, I've got a bit of a blocked nose, so my readings aren't exactly of the highest quality right now. This one itself I had to re-record 3 or 4 times, that's why it took so long. So thanks for being patient, and I'll see you in the next one.